Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to this other edition of Prime Hour, the first for the week. We are going today be looking at the response by the government of Cameroon through the parliamentarians who wrote a letter to the U.S. Secretary of State in response to another letter that was written by the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. We are going to be looking at the points raised by the Cameroon government through the parliament, and also we are going to be looking at Germany's response to a possible intervention in Cameroon. Germany, actually, according to what was said recently by its foreign affairs minister, that they have no intention to intervene as far as what is happening in the northwest and southwest regions are concerned in Cameroon. We are going to be discussing this with our panelists who are seated already. Three of them are in the house. Dr. Nick Ngwanya is in the house with us. He is a politician, a social entrepreneur, and an educationist. Good evening. We are glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, our listeners. And I would beg a few minutes from you after you have finished with the introduction to lay a framework so that even as we get distracted with the many arguments, people should stick to that framework.
Okay. We are also in the company of Professor Mark Anthony. He is a Pan-Africanist. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Leo. Good evening to my fellow panelists and to the million viewers of my media Prime and precisely of Prime Hour watching this particular hour. I also want to believe that the reason why we are seated here is not actually to give you just our opinions, but the intention is to actually educate on issues that concern our nation, precisely the Anglophone problem that is happening and the response of the Cameroon government to the United States based on the letter that was written, the open letter that was written by the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. Thank you.
We are also in the company of Elvis Tayon. He is the under communication secretary for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. We are glad to have you.
Thanks very much. It's my pleasure being here today. Greetings to the people of Mundemba, of course, where I have quite been monitoring political issues on the ground. And just to find out that elections in that part of the country are teleguided by officials from the Prime Minister's office, with reasons best known to them. But I think it defeats the purpose of democracy in terms of elections of chiefs issues. Well, that's the kangaroo system we have. We always have to bear it the way it is. Greetings to the people of Gunoko village, as well as to His Royal Majesty Dr. Fomiki Waters and His Royal Majesty Babit, that's the fund of Mbemi village, and a host of others, including the Royal Majesty fund of Baba One.
Okay. We also are in the company of Andrin Atemibako. He is a Pan-Africanist also, who is regular with us out here. Good evening. Welcome, Andrin Atemibako.
Good evening, Mr. Kum Jonat, and to all the other panelists who are here tonight, and to all Cameroonians and all the worldwide viewers at this moment. Thank you very much.
We are starting with you, Dr. Nick. And Gwanyam, you said you were going to set the stage. Yes, a guideline.
Yes, it's very, very important for me to say what I've got to say, because I have noticed, sometimes things are very easy, but we get carried over with emotions and arguing over small things, and we spread the energy all over. At the end of the day, we lose focus and we don't know where we are, and that's why I asked for this time to say a couple of things. And you will now realize that whatever we'll be discussing, we'll just be getting to understand the polemics around it, but the core of the things that I'm going to say will stay. That said, some people say it's not an Anglophone problem, it's supposed to be called a Southern Cameroon problem, it's an Amber problem, whatever. I just want to say that the name is not important. The name is not important. What is important is that we have a problem. And whether we call, it doesn't matter, we could call it a BR problem, call it a whatever problem. We should just say that that problem that Anglophones have, it needs a solution. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, because we are here with the Pan-Africanists, we are here with everybody, to say that, to remind people on what I said on Sunday about the cause of the Anglophone problem. the cause of the Anglophone problem, the causes are threefold. There is A, B, and C. There is a foundation to the problems, which would be what Professor Mark would be insisting on, the decolonization that was wrongly done. But there is a part B, it laid by the foundation for mistrust and abuse. Then there's the part B, which will be the things that happened starting in 1972. We are talking of the cancellation of the federal system. We are talking of the intentional marginalization that the president accepted while in Paris, that the marginalization of the Anglophones was intentional to kind of like force them to become Francophones. We are talking of the bad governance in the nation. Then the C to it is the last straw that broke the camel's back. We are talking of the matchstick that set the house on fire, which would be what we call, I mean, we are referring to as the lawyers' problems and the teachers' problems. I'm trying to explain this so that our children, everybody should understand that it's a package deal, having roots and having to deal with these three things. Because otherwise, when we'll be listening to that letter we'll be seeing how people who are smart, they try to tell lies by referring to the matchstick. What else is it that I wanted to say? Just to say that at the end of the day, we are discussing this. It's a great idea, but I want to continue to remind you, because people are going to ask the question: why is it that the Germans probably are not interested? Why is it that the UN is probably not interested in discussing this thing? And why? To say that whatever is happening, the idea was to get the government to sit and look at the Anglophone problem and solve it. And it should be very clear to everybody that nobody is going to come from outside to solve the problem. It's Cameroonians who will solve the problems. The people from outside can probably help us along the way, but we must be the ones who are deciding to solve the problem, and those around the world will help us. And the president, Paul Biya, has, watch my lips, he's made up his mind for a true, inclusive, responsible dialogue. After that dialogue, there will be reconciliation and unity. I just wanted to make these statements so that we don't get lost.
Okay. I'll read the introduction. It says, the Ministry of External Relations of the Republic of Cameroon presents its compliments to the Embassy of the United States of America, and with reference to the open letter addressed to the United States Secretary of State on April the 6th, 2021, on the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions, written by a collective of organizations based in the United States of America, has the honor to forward here with a resolution of the Cameroon House of Assembly sitting in ordinary session on April the 9th, 2021, providing clarifications to the Honorable Secretary of State to the prevailing situation in the Northwest and Southwest regions. The Ministry of External Relations avails itself of this opportunity to renew to the Embassy of the United States of America the assurances of its highest consideration. We are going to be looking at some of the points raised. That is going to be the focus for our discussion today. It's written, I'll just cite certain aspects. They say they go to the late 2016, in which labor, trade, and linguistic disputes have morphed into a hitherto unimaginable crisis which has brought untold suffering. Please, can we just follow, because I'm coming to you. What is going on now? The parliamentarians, because this letter is actually written by parliamentarians, signed by 105 of them. Now, they say they describe the situation as having brought untold suffering, misery, desolation, and armed conflict in our once peace-loving country. Is that a clear picture of what is happening in the Southwest and Northwest region?
Mr. Leo, actually using the words which they use, I won't refuse that it's not a clear picture. We have untold misery actually happening right now in the Northwest and Southwest.
Desolation.
There's desolation. There is actually
armed conflict.
I don't want to only call it an armed conflict. I want to call it a war already, because at times we try to escape from such words. But in relation to the number of persons already dead, in relation to international organizations, over 4,000 persons, we can't be talking of an armed conflict as if it's something that we just lost about 400 persons. It's more than 4,000 people. That being an official number. And Mr. Leo, I want to say that in relation to the mindset of the parliamentarians, they said they wanted to give an exactitude what is happening up there. But when you read through the letter, you discover that it is not the exactitude. And you feel disappointed with some of the
No,
ideas.
we are going to be moving one step after the other.
Okay.
But my question to you was to find out whether, when they say it has brought untold suffering, misery, desolation, and armed conflict,
That is true. That is true. That is very true.
Yes, but one may want to go further by questioning that now they are writing to the U.S. Secretary of State when they themselves have not discussed this in Parliament.
Okay, that was my own point I was about to bring up. I also say that after having written this letter and presented this kind of situation to the Secretary of State of the United States of America, we should then and ask them, why is it that having been able to go through this letter, we came to understand that they know exactly what is happening in the Northwest region and Southwest region. Why have they not brought it as an agenda in the House? And when I want to say that from their writing, it's like they are reactionary. It proves the bad faith of the individuals that are sitting in that House. I mean, though not all, but some of the majority of them do not actually have Cameroonians at heart. Because you can't claim that it has brought untold misery. I like that word, untold misery, to the people of the Northwest and Southwest. And then you sit and you are unable to present it in the House. Discussing it is the beginning of solving it. That's the beginning of the solution. And if they can't actually introduce it in the House, what then are they discussing when they have a situation like that is hitting the nation and actually destroying it? And they claim that it is destroying the peace of the nation. Yes, it is true. If it is actually taking away the peace, the once loving, peaceful nation, Cameroon, that peace is no more. Why then don't you discuss the issue to bring back the peace in the House? It implies that they know the problem, but they are surely afraid of bringing it in the House. And as I once said on this platform, I'll still repeat it, it is difficult for this problem to be tabled in that particular House. Reason being that if it is tabled in the House, then they must go back to start looking at the root problem. And looking at the root issue of it, it might cause a situation where Cameroonians will have more problems to solve than just the armed crisis right now. Sincerely, if we go back to the roots, we will have to start dealing with not just marginalization as it is claimed. We'll not be talking only about peace as we are talking about right now. We'll start looking at the come together. Let me say the unity of the nation. We'll start looking again, going back to look at the unification. And if that is going to be a major discussion in that House, I don't think that those guys are willing to bring it back to the House.
Okay. You don't think so, but Dr. Nick says that in the crystal ball that he consults every day, something is going to happen. But Andrew Atemebako, the MPs writing to the U.S. Secretary of State in retaliation to another letter that came from the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation, the MPs say that this crisis is threatening the foundations of our nation.
Well, Mr. Leo, you see, to me, we have to look at things as a people who really desire to make change, people who really desire to be a people belonging to one nation and willing to work together instead of playing politics and trying to defend yourself and throw blames on the other party. At the end of the day, we remain to be Cameroonians, and we are stuck here within the confinement of our nation. It is not in a case where we need to sit down and then wait for the international community to draw attention to what Cameroon is going through or what Cameroonians are going through. I don't think that is that is a right attitude that Cameroonians should be portraying, because the fact alone that the MPs are replying to a letter that came right away from the United States, I think that is to me is a form of madness, because at the end of the day, when you go back to see what Jesus was trying to say about settling disputes, he said when you have a problem within the house and you realize that you're not able to solve that problem, you are supposed to draw in the elders who are capable of solving that problem. So you don't open your doors and take it out to those who do not have concern of that family. So there are people in the family who genuinely have the family at heart, that if these matters are taken to them, they can solve this problem. And I keep asking that, why is it that we have reduced our chieftaincies, our palaces, our traditional councils? Tell me how different is this matter with the ones that are being handled at the level of traditional council. We have seen cases at the level of village elders, communities where mature elites were able to resolve matter. Why is it that this particular one, the government have decided to handle it in a particular way, which has kept all these other actors away? From what we saw with the late Cardinal Tumi, to late Fonvi Mukete, and many others who had called in for an inclusive dialogue and called the government to come there as an eye to witness, to see how this issue can be brought to a consensus where everybody can live well. So, Mr. Leo, you see, the aspect of Anglophone was only adopted in 1972. Before 1972, we did not know of English Anglophones. That word Anglophone did not exist. It only came was when they abolished the federal system. That is when now people started saying, yeah, Anglophones. You cannot identify yourself of a global language which is used worldwide, and then you reduce it to an identity where a people identify themselves by a language. So these are things that we are told what language we should use, we are told what name we should use, we are told who we are, and then we start fighting to defend all those things. So, Mr. Liu, I think that what we need to do right now, looking at the global pandemic, America has a lot on the table to handle. Europe, the same, has a lot on the table to handle. Even Cameroon, coming to the pandemic, has a lot on the table to handle. So I think that instead of us playing international politics, if the government is willing, I still say this, they are capable and competent individuals if they have the good political will to resolve this problem, because with all indication, from the regional consulators, special consulators, to the regional councillors, the payment that the government has created a budget to pay them for doing nothing, creating avenues, offices, organizations, just to expand an empire that works to protect the few and not the masses. People who do not reflect the aspiration and people who cannot bring solutions to this crisis, these are the people that the government is still consulting the same people who have no evidence on ground. So these are times where, Mr. Liu, I say that if we want to change and bring about a resolution to this problem, it is simple. Call and meet one-on-one, meet the actors or the people who are concerned. It's very simple. Go down to the northwest and to the southwest. The budget that was carved out to pay the special consulators for the two regions, the regional councillors and all of that. Build the homes of those that have been destroyed. Give capitals to those who have lost their businesses. Change the lives of people based on where at the end of the day people can see that the government is absolutely you cannot protect a container and leave the content. So it is a time where we need to see how this dialogue, reconstruction, decentralization that has no autonomy, Mr. Leo, at the end of the day, it is the people of those two regions that needs to testify that something is happening on the side of the government, but the government has not showed any goodwill. All they have been doing is only to expand the empire, the very empire that has been killing and destroying this nation.
Temibako, my question was in response to what the MPs are saying. They say this crisis is threatening the foundations of our nation, our national unity, our efforts towards democracy, and our territorial integrity. I'm sure that is apt. Now, they say for a considerable time schools were shut down and through threats to local businesses, kidnappings and maiming, ghost towns were instituted in these regions. They are regretting because what is happening in this These two regions, yes, it is affecting the lives of our national lives. Children are not going to school, business is dwindling, and the host of others.
Well, it is quite timely. You see me smiling. Greetings to powers therefore watching us from Limbe. Now, I would be able to comment well on that because I'm a member of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation. And you see, like what Atabebako was saying, you know, key actors and other like. I think some of us are members of that coalition, and the coalition comprises of people even right down to grassroots. Probably sometimes, I'm just saying this because we have been working for quite some time, and with members of the steering committee and advisory board quite doing their job at the right time. Well, the surprises are still many on the way, and you know, this is just one out of many that is going to let you know that the crisis must come to an end,
okay,
whether the regime likes it or not.
Since you are raising the issue of the steering committee members, I have here Dr. Denis Foretia, co-chair. He's a medical doctor. Mrs. Judith Mwana, co-chair, secretary with the World Bank and a World Bank official. Dr. Valentine Fontama, Mr. Henry A. Oben, Professor Julius Agbo, Paul Ndi, Cletus, new Professor Lilian Atanga, Professor of Gender and Linguistics, and Dr. Henry Tabe. These are steering committee members, and then
advisory board members.
Yes, advisory board.
I think they wanted to keep it somehow still for the time being. But
okay,
maybe sincerely, you know, I understand you very well. You know, you're doing your job as a journalist. We wanted to still keep it because if you look at the members of the advisory board, you look at the members of the steering committee, and you look at the members who manned the communication unit, I think there's no nonsense persons in that entire structure. And we meant business because, you know, for the time being, we have not been able to take some time to make noise because we believe in results. We believe in results. If you look at the coalition generally, it's not only made of Cameroonians, probably, as you find it there. It's made of Cameroonians and non-Cameroonians. Why? Because we felt that the problem now is a holistic one. Because Yaoundé regime is not willing, I repeat, not willing to solve the problem, but using cosmetic measures and taking on cues of lies telling, like Dr. Nick telling you that the President Pobia wants to, no. It's just a fat lie. And so we have decided to put in place mechanisms that will cause Yaoundé to get to work, whether they like it or not. Well, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't want to go today into that. I'll be responding probably to the letter which they responded, because if you look at it, Mr. Leo, you know, it's ironical that after some MPs, about 6 of them wrote some letter, you know, castigating totally and talking about they should not interfere into Cameroon is an internal affair. The same, no, not the same. Additional persons queue in now, and now they are explaining something, you know. This is just the beginning. Because when we talk about an issue, once you are a country and you are a treaty, you have a treaty with international norms, with international, you are a party to the international treaty, there's no way you can act as an island. Sometimes I see ministers babbling with CPDM regime barons who make a whole lot of noise. Cameroon is an independent this and that. You know, you cannot. But at the same time, you rely on some of these countries for survival. Remember, there's no country that's an island when it comes to issues of balance of trade, international relations, and all the like. So what we simply we are doing is that the issue has been tabled. This is just one of the iceberg. There are many letters that no one to put it here because the coalition is quite at work, and we mean business that Yaoundé, whether he likes it or not. Now, if you look at from the letter there, citing the crisis, I will say that I will not want to castigate the over 100 MPs because the first thing is, to an extent, they are acknowledging. Now, I want to let you know the mafia in the whole issue. Yaoundé listens very well because sometimes you think that you are too intelligent. But I want to let you know that you have people that know exactly what transpires on the ground. Now, the letter is reported to have been written by over 100 MPs, right? And then MPs, correct, as is purported, and then sent down through external relation. Now, I would tell you that it is just a cook-up mechanism. The issue is the letter has to do with the government taking its own defense mechanism. That's the bitter truth. There are many things I would be keeping it in display for professional reasons and for the way we are functioning at the level of the coalition. But as time goes on, I'll be letting you know exactly the crux of the matter around the whole thing. Now, when you look at it, Mr. Liu, the letter is almost appearing sincere, but at the same time, it's not sincere. You see? So sometimes, I said, I don't know if people who go to IRIC, they go with their sitting on their brains, because when you work on international politics and international relations, you should understand that there are other persons who can equally read and decode what you have. Because of the essence of international relations and international politics, the ability under diplomacy to pick a text and then read it and then you are setting the brain or the reasoning behind that particular literature. And so, if you look at that literary work there, it is true there's an act of defense which is set in. All right, they pretend to bring about what we call sincerity to tell you that the crisis has caused untold damage, which is true from their outings. Of course, the ghost towns and all the like. But then, if you look at it sincerely, parliamentarians of that nature, as they claim, cannot pass through the Ministry of External Relations when you are just from a session and you could not put it as an emergency case. But remember that COVID-19 was put in the session. There's a committee that deliberated on the COVID-19 and the vaccine on an emergency move during the sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate. So you start asking yourself, was the COVID-19 issue, which just came yesterday, fast becoming more important than the crisis that started some years, just some 4 or 5 years behind? So if you look at it, ask yourself, why is that these parliamentarians did not discuss this issue in their plenary sitting, but they decided to curb the letter and then to send now through the external relations? So if you look at it, I am just...
No, it is written that has the honor to forward here with the Republic of the House of Assembly sitting in ordinary session on April the 9th. That was when...
That's what I'm saying, that if you look at it critically, they give you the scenario, they give you the impression that they have sat and they have worked on it. But Mr. Leo, when they give you that impression, they did not. You are a media man. Unless maybe they sat and we were reporting something else. But I know that I had coverage on the sitting of the assembly, and I did not get something of that nature. Now, could it be that they sat in hiding? The question now is, why did they sit in secret and then they are bringing in this now which becomes public? So if you look at it, the consistency is totally absent in the whole issue. Okay. That's why I said that I appreciate them, because we must be able to appreciate Mr. Leo for the fact that they are acknowledging, even if they are pushed by circumstances. But I want to let you know that this is just the beginning. More circumstances caused by the coalition for dialogue and negotiation will cause them even more. They have not started confessing. More confessions are on the way. But as I said, people will pay for their crimes. Be it on any side, once you're an actor in the entire issue, people will pay for the crime. Mr. Leo, watch my lips and hear what I'm saying. It's a matter of the mechanisms are on board. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, this is the second letter that is emanating from the Glass House in relation to the ongoing crisis. Remember, they also emitted a letter, sure that was last month, to another letter that came from the U.S. Congress that was addressed to the Biden administration. And we are having a second letter. Is our National Assembly getting the more interested in what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest region? Because for the past years, we've really not gotten anything from that house.
There is a pidgin expression that means a lot. If you don't play politics, politics go play you. If we're the guests this morning, if you don't play politics, politics go play you. They've been denied for play politics. Now politics, they play them. You understand what I'm saying? Good. Now, before I even delve into that, let me just give you some background. Listen, my dear parliamentarians, if you look through their letter, you see that the ideas they are dealing with, they have a package of emotions. They have a package of emotions. They're behaving like, no, I don't want to use some, women will come after me if I say that. They have a package of emotions, and they play that emotional card, and then they are not telling you the truth as to how those things came about. They hide that one. Are you getting what I'm saying? They play, they play that card. Oh, you see, this one has gone up, that one has come down, but they don't tell you what is underneath. When it comes to telling you what is underneath, they are mute. And that's where they lie. Now, that said, sometimes as Christians, we pray. I mean, not sometimes. As Christians, we pray. As good Muslims, we pray for God's will to be done. We ask for God to help us solve our problems. But the interesting thing is, when we pray, more often than not, we think that God should do it the way we think. We kind of like work out the strategies. God should send some American to come and attack, help. No. God works in ways that are completely different from man's ways. And therefore, watch my lips. All Cameroonians, you see, we've been having all sorts of problems, many problems. But something just happened of recent that you might not be aware of. And once you understand what has gone on, you'll be very thankful. You see that money, that COVID money that all these people stole, ministers and administrators. That money that they stole, that's the money that will liberate Cameroon. That money, they stole until the owner noticed. And because the owner noticed, and they are now supposed to give account to the owner, they will be in deep shit, all of them. And because there are a group of people who had blocked the whole system, they gave contrary ideas to the president and did other things to the population, the courtiers. You know, if you read that book, The 40 Principles of Power, you would understand what has been going on. And that stealing of COVID money by all of them, by most of them, will liberate us. It will liberate us. Watch and see how God's work shall be. I mean, how God will work in the whole system. Many of them who used to make noise, if you ask them 2 + 2, now they won't give you an answer because they're wondering whether they go to prison or not. Until they give a clean account to the last penny. I know doctors have been working and dying and so on and have received no penny and so on. But you know, yesterday when there was that money, everybody, administrators, everybody was so interested in it. And they pushed the people who were supposed to be using the money and into a tight corner. That money will liberate us. I don't know. I just wanted to make this point. And to say again that when we are dealing with Americans, oh, listen to me, guys. Those guys, they have the FBI. They have the CIA. They have their ambassadors here. They have their people who come here to...
Peace Corps.
They are Peace Corps. Those Peace Corps, you say they are Peace Corps. They are spies. Not spies in the negative way, but they get to know what is happening. And then, the Americans, but they work with all the Israelites. They work with the French, the English, the Germans, and so on. And they know you better than you know yourself. You show up with your small paper and you are telling lies and you think that they believe in you. I mean, in fact, you're making yourself, how do you say it? You're making a mockery of yourself in the world. You think they believe that you're trash? They don't. For heaven's sake. You just embarrass yourself. Sorry.
Yeah, but can we say that the Parliament, National Assembly is getting more interested in...
Getting them more interested, they're trying to hide, they're behaving like ostriches, trying to hide because it comes to a point where, no matter talk, say, if you don't play politics will play you. They had been hiding, but it comes to a point where if you don't do something, you know, now it looks like this is your committee for national whatever. Dialogue. Yeah, it's like a trigger that is like, you know, you have cockroaches in a bag, but when the heat starts going up, then they start running out. That's what has happened. Because if they don't react, they don't know what will happen. But the bottom line is, if you don't play politics will play you, and the time has come. But I feel so sorry because you start doing that your thing. But the thing is, if they were to be put on a hot chair, you will not answer most of the questions.
Okay, good evening to you, Ngum Benedict Tafil, Tabi Eric Sentry, good evening to you, Usman Mbela, and to you, Tabi Eric Sentry, good Godi Nyukonyi, who is always watching, Anita Eno Taka, good evening to you, Emmanuel Itoke, Dinga Theodore, Muma Derek Njinek Joel, Alon Martin, good evening to you, Mumu Inclusam, Gilberto Salo Oben Clinton Ojong, Alon Martin, all of you guys watching, Kelvin Doom Teke, and yes, all of you guys, Mbungong, Valerie Tamba, watching on social media. Good evening to you guys. We are glad to know that you're following our discussions and also participating in the discussions online. Now, to you, Professor Mark Anthony, our MPs are saying that the government of Cameroon deployed the armed services and the law enforcement agencies because previously they say there is a complete breakdown in law and order and the reign of anarchy, notably in sparsely populated rural areas. Is that an apt description of what we are observing there?
It's a lie, Mr. Liu.
Is there no complete breakdown of the law?
We will not just go talking about a complete breakdown of law and order without going back to point how it all started. If people came up, I think if you go back in 2016, it all began with lawyers and teachers who actually demonstrated and showed their grievances. And the way they were treated, actually, some of them were beaten. If I remember, some of their wigs were taken. If I can remember the Munya case because I was close. And in Bamenda, it happened the same. Some of them were tear gassed.
So where are the lawyers and the teachers now?
You see, that's where it began. there must be a starting point.
Yeah, but answer the question now.
Yes, Leo, you don't expect me to answer a yes and no question. From there, it happened that some guys got angry. Then went onto the streets and started asking for, okay, we need our, the talk of statehood. We need our statehood to be restored. And as a result of that, it resorted to gunshots. And the military reacted violently, which resorted to death. I did not leave my house in a corner to come to Douala because I wanted to come to Douala. If you go, you look at my house right now in a corner, it is filled with bullets, holes everywhere. I could not live there anymore, so I ran. It was not the boys that shot those bullets, were the military who did it. And when that happened, some of us, we ran. So we were displaced not because it was the military. Then those boys also came in and the situation grew worse. And because the situation grew worse, people now were displaced completely. If we are talking about this thing, we must balance it. We should not say it is because of boys who pick up arms, like I'm seeing in their letter. They shouldn't put it on one side. It is something that happened from both sides. The reaction of the military resulted to another reaction from the Amba boys who, as a result of that, the civilians are suffering. And if we have to say these things, I think that truth is the only solution to this problem. If we forget and we keep truth aside and keep on with the lies, we'll never be able to solve this problem.
Is there breakdown of law and order in the Northwest?
You had responded to that answer. There is breakdown long ago. I could not have told you earlier that there is desolation, and you still ask me the same question now. If it's not breakdown, there's breakdown. There's disorder in the whole place. But where did it come from? It started from a misunderstanding.
Professor Mark Anthony, at least I'm the moderator.
Okay, Mr. Liu, I'm listening to you.
I am the one who raised the issue of desolation.
Okay, yeah.
I'm getting to something. I'm asking you a question. You are pointing me back to something that we passed.
Yes, there is breakdown.
Permit me to flow with the program.
There is breakdown, Mr. Liu. I've responded to that question. There is breakdown.
Please let us cool down, man. Let us.
I am not hot. I'm cold. I'm not emotional either. I'm being objective.
Yeah, because I asked the question, you're not answering. You are telling the history that everybody is telling. And I'm saying that you have not answered my question. You said you went to this. You are quoting desolation. Desolation was the first question I asked you, and you are going back to it. Okay,
there is breakdown, complete disorder. In fact, there is anarchy right now in the Northwest and the Southwest.
Okay, let me get to you now. Andy Temibako, they say the consequence of this many numerous and measures aimed at addressing the concerns expressed by the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions are progressively leading our country to return to normalcy. To achieve this return to peace, the people of Cameroon have benefited from the instrumental contributions from the international community. Now, I don't know, it is true. We have many humanitarian agencies on ground. Is that the international assistance that has come into Cameroon to help curb what is happening?
Well, Mr. Leo, I may not be so much versed with the humanitarian aid which we are talking about, but I've seen other individual, how will I put it, organizations that have been able to curb down the humanitarian aid, especially the internally displaced persons. We have seen people of goodwill who have shared their support to make sure that these individuals are not kept in isolation. Yes, but I will not say we have seen, how will I put it, a giant move by the international community to curb down the humanitarian situation that is ongoing.
No, they're acknowledging the fact that the international community has been very instrumental in contributing to helping what is happening out here.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying, that I'm not too sure how instrumental they have been, because we are in Cameroon. It's not as if we are living in space. If they are doing something, we should be able to see what they are doing. I'm telling you that they are people of goodwill that we have seen, Cameroonians themselves, both in the diaspora and at home, that have been able to put resources together, put on ground where these people can absolutely use it to how will I put it, to mitigate their situation. Yes, so So that is the way I look at it. I will not say that the international community, because Mr. Leo, let us be frank, it is not Cameroon. I would say that the crisis Cameroon is going through, it is not an alarming situation where what is happening in the how will I put it, in other parts of the world, and even to these very nations that we are looking up to, America, whether it's Europe and all of that. No, Cameroon is not going through something very special. If you even look, like I gave some other statistics here last time, only on our road accidents every year we have 16,000 road accidents every year, killing about 1,200 persons minimum, which is way bigger than even the Anglophone crisis, because we are talking of casualty and deaths. So let us be very frank when we come into look at what Cameroon is going through and what the international community is saying. The way to me forward is that the Cameroonians, like I said before, we look at responsibilities on 3 dimensions. We look at the international community, we look at our government, and then we look at our local population. So at the end of the day, when we put blame, why is the international community not doing something? Why is our government not doing something? At the end of the day, like I said, we can take up how will I put it, a decision to change our own situation. We have seen that in other parts of the world, like I cited the case of Nigeria, the IPOD, the SARS. We saw the case in Mali, the ongoing situation right now in Mali, that Malians are asking France to leave their nation. So at one point, when it has become, they say gravity is it's a law where how will I put it? The principle of kinetic energy does not apply in gravity. So the more you are stagnant, the more the situation becomes more grievous and more difficult to even solve. We are not making a step forward. If the government or the people of this nation was even taking a step forward, we will not be where we used to be, like we complained when the crisis began. So at the end of the day, Cameroonians are not doing nothing, including their government are not doing nothing. The international community are not doing nothing. So at the end of the day, what then are we really complaining? We are complaining that we have a crisis. What is the population of this country or those 2 regions prior to the crisis? What are they doing? Are we only going to run away? Are we only going to flee our homes and all of that? What measures are we going to take to pressurize the government on what we want? Having people in the places of decision making reflecting the aspiration and the hope of their own people. This is very important. But the people we have in positions are people who do not communicate with the people who are suffering. So we cannot depend on these people that I have cited. Like I said, change can come from any angle. Mr. Leo, what are we talking about? We are talking about Southern Cameroon and the other part of Cameroon. So how is the genesis of the problem? The genesis of the problem was not in 2016, was not even in 1972. The genesis of the problem goes way back to when the Cameroon so-called got its independence in a confinement where it's being looked from outside, was called to practice or use a system which we are saying that we are trying to apply democracy for it to work with. What do we have to apply democracy in Cameroon? Mr. Liu, tell me. Democracy can only be applied when people have already achieved and attained success. It's a system which, whether if you are not there, it works. That's why you can see that His Excellency Paul Biya can report to a 35-year-old boy, Macron. He's not submitting to him because the boy is bigger than him, it's because the system is bigger than him. So that's why I'm saying that we don't have the how will I put it, the legitimacy to apply what works for people who have already attained, people who have already achieved.
Okay.
So this is very important. We need individuals of goodwill. Like we saw with Magufuli, in a short period of time, he was able to build a system, one man, build a system that could outlive him. We don't have that. Okay. This is where Cameroon needs to go to. We need politicians, members of parliament, senate with very good political will who can stand and bring changes to their community. Let us be able to see TV. We see how communities are being changed. The community, I'm talking of the people, the lives of the people is being improving. Every 10 years, the country is able to produce 7 million poor Cameroonians. We have foreigners coming in here. In no short period of time, they are all become millionaires. Why can we not nationalize all our investment, make sure that it is Cameroonians investing in Cameroon, giving Cameroonians the priority, supporting Cameroonians? This is not what we get with our government.
The letter says, in response to this unprecedented situation, our government called for a major national dialogue on October 2019 with over 1,000 participants representing trade unions, political parties, civil society organizations, government officials, and armed combatants, religious and traditional rulers. A key recommendation of this process was the endowment of special status for the English-speaking Northwest and Southwest regions in conformity with Section 62, sub 2 of our Constitution. That was a major stride taken or made by the government in response to the ongoing crisis.
Let me tell you that these parliamentarians are clowns.
No.
I take responsibility of what I'm saying. They are clowns. When they cite principles that have not worked, are they citing the principles to demagogues or are citing to people who are more intelligent than them? I don't know, when God wants to punish a human being, he takes wisdom from you and you start gallivanting in the air like a vehicle that has lost control. That's what those people are doing as of now. As per that aspect you are just citing now. When you say you have over 1,000 participants in the national dialogue, we start asking, who were those persons? What were the caliber of the 1,000 persons present? Were they worth it in terms of resolving the conflict? The answer is no. Therefore, that aspect has no validity. Point number 2. When you say out of the 1,000 participants, they had even armed combatants and all the like, we start asking, the armed combatants who came, what portfolio do they have in the present conflict? Armed combatants of no portfolio. You have just one, whom you could even say, but the question is, when he left, what control does he have on the ground? Zero. I repeat, zero. Parliamentarians, hear me very well. If you're a part of this letter, hear me very well. I say zero. So when you look at it, Mr. Leo, we talk about people who took part in the national dialogue. We should be asking, because I say these parliamentarians, they are shameless. Very shameless. Because when you quote these things thinking that you are quoting an achievement, you are quoting a failure that typifies your own self quoting what you are saying. Because if we talk about armed combatants, who were they? All right, if these armed combatants were what the issue, after the national dialogue, did they stop others? No, war is still going on. And I said earlier, Mr. Leo, that from what I see, some of these parliamentarians are surely moving with evil spirits. Why do I say so? If you look at it, the war is simply metamorphosizing. It's not that it's finishing. In my area in Benue, I thought it was finished until people were already jubilating. We only realized that people have resurfaced. And what is it? It means that they were surely resting or surely taking other strategies. And if you look at it sporadic, Mr. Leo, you are a media man. Look at what happened in Manu recently. For the past 2-3 weeks, we've had simultaneous attacks all around, northwest, southwest, right up, even right to Kumbo and Kamer. Areas we thought they were already calm. Until they are burning a school in Kamer. Kamer that has been calm for long. They are burning a primary school until the GEO comes out and is terrorizing the villagers. You can imagine the scenario there. It tells you that I have been telling Yaoundé, when you look at the crisis, we understand the minister went to Bamenda and said the government has already defeated the separatists. Only a few days after, to hear another launch and counter-launching and attacks. It means we are all stupid. Why can we not be honest? Now look at it. The worst of that statement in that paragraph, Mr. Leo, is when they ended up with special status. Do these guys reason? You end up with special status as if the problem with the people in these areas, in the rest areas, was aspect of special status. Do they take us for fools? Of course, the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation has a solution. We don't bother. Be blowing the grammar and be writing the literature you're writing, thinking that you're playing for fools. One thing I love here with Dr. Nick's outing is he said clearly that when you look at the West, they have a mechanism of getting information that they want. And as I said, just like what Dr. Nick is saying, which is correct, you could be surprised that there are things in your own backyard that they can pass to tell you, which you are not even aware. Why? Because most of them sponsor NGOs. They have organizations. And these organizations have what they call umbrella organizations. They have what they call partner organizations. They have a way of listening and getting information, which sometimes when I see the parliamentarians right, just by quoting the national dialogue, which we are quoting to people who are versed with conflict resolution, it means that you are already stupefying yourself and telling them that this your reply of this letter is a reply coming from a dubious angle, which they will not take you serious. Okay. I'm very sorry to say that.
I greet you, Mr. Liu, and all those in the studio. Kiso Christopher Nyambu, writing from CDC Industrial Unit Mokonje. Good evening, brothers. It's Elvis Manui. Please, True Politics is speaking the truth with a true conscience. God bless those who stand for the truth. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's Desmond. I think the aspect of Cameroon government writing to the U.S. Secretary of State on Anglophone crisis is another part of the bad faith they keep showing to solve the crisis. Desmond writing from Douala. Mr. Liu, I appreciate your program so much. Kudos to the people like Dr. Nick and the Kangaroo Man who are always there to ensure that the conflict in our nation is resolved. Maga Antoinette writing from Bamenda. Now, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, I will continue reading. It says that this bill, okay, in December 2019, our government tabled a bill to institute the General Code on Regional and Local Authority, which enshrines the special status stipulating the law may take into consideration the specificities of certain regions with regards to their organization and functioning. This bill was rapidly promulgated into law, and a specific organizational and operational regime based on our historical, social, and cultural values was created in our regions. Now, this is the code on decentralization that the MPs are talking about. It means that this code came into existence because of the Anglophone crisis, without which we will not be talking about that bill now.
I just feel so bad. I just feel so bad because you know, the question that you first asked, the question refers to that big thing called the major national dialogue. And the question that you are asking me refers to a small aspect of something that came from that major national dialogue.
The consequence of the major national dialogue.
But what I'm saying is that that big thing called the major national dialogue, watch my lips, failed. So when you now go to, you know, in Part B and you're asking me about a small thing that came from something that failed, which in itself is failed to the extent that even those MPs, if they were in front of us here and we in front of cameras and we question them to tell us what is special status, they will not tell you. They are reciting something that they don't even understand.
Are you saying you don't know what is special status?
What is special status? It's an empty box. It means nothing. You see, let me tell you something. I was at the major national dialogue, and sometimes, like they say, you know, what is in a name? What is in the name? You know, a moment ago, I was trying to clarify. I said, don't bother yourself about Anglophone problem. We go quarreling over a name, but it is the substance that matters. And you know, after those recommendations of the major national dialogue, there was this thing called special status that was hanging in the air, and nobody actually knew what it was. And I'm one of those who was actually beating the drum and pushing and hoping that the government would realize that the major national dialogue had failed, but they would take some useful clauses and fit it in that thing called the special status to make it look like a federation, so that some peace would come. Because the Anglophone problem is a problem of the form of state. It's a problem of the form of state. And that special status as it is now is not a form of state. The form of state as we had it again, our country was very highly centralized. And then we went and cooked up something and made it and called it decentralization, which was not very palatable to so many other people who became very angry and then went overboard and have been advocating for a cessation. So we have these two tense situations. Then you had people like us who are advocating for a central position, which is a federation/confederation. Now, these are the positions. Special status has got nothing to do with this. We have to have a proper dialogue which is coming. And at that proper dialogue, this is the key thing. Once we sort out the form of state, it will solve 80% of our Anglophone problem. And I'm saying that the major national dialogue, the way it was organized, that damn thing failed, just like the way they have used COVID money. The way they use COVID money and the COVID fight is a failure. They did the same thing in the major national dialogue. They have been doing the same thing in football. They do the same thing with water. They do the same thing with do the same thing with construction of our roads. And I have challenged, do the same thing with Cameco, with shipping line, with the rail lines, and I have challenged any Cameroonian to give me 2 things that we do excellently in Cameroon, and I will shut up. So the major national dialogue was just a copy of how we do business. It failed.
Don't we doing so well in Cameroon?
No, I'm talking about positive things. If it's the negative things, we have baskets full of negative things. We follow women, beer, lies telling, stealing, keep naming them.
Dr. Nick, a Cameroonian is the best boxer. Samuel Eto'o was excelling in football.
That is individual. That is individual effort. It's not a government. It was not a government thing to build Eto'o to who he was. It was not a government thing to build that our boxer to. These are just accidents of nature. They pop up and yeah.
Okay, Professor Mark and Tony. Now I'll continue reading. They say these irreversible reforms, talking about the major national dialogue, they're coming into a place of this bill on decentralization. These irreversible reforms towards decentralization and the accompanying devolution of powers from the central government to regional executive councils is a product of the firm commitment at the highest levels of the executive branch of government in response to clamoring for change and reforms that led to the outbreak of the crisis. Now, to you, since the holding of the regional elections, do you see devolution of powers? Has anything changed at all when it comes to mayors? Do they wield more powers today? Do we see the regional presidents, executive, do they wield more powers today?
Just of recent, the situation that happened here in Douala, where a mayor actually signed a communique actually asking that a school should be closed. And it didn't take a day. There was the response of the prefect, who say the senior divisional officer of Warri, responding to that mayor and actually asking that those schools should be reopened, which is already proving that there is nothing like decentralization. Those mayors, those regional councillors and presidents, on practical basis, they have little or no power. Because it, like Dr. Nick actually said, it is a kind of, should I use the word, they're just struggling to use a word that will suit the ears of the people to make the people feel, okay, yes, something is happening. But in reality, there is no content in the words that they use. When we talk of decentralization, I made mention one time here, I think during that election period, I said, the whole idea of decentralization is actually deconcentration. And it is not actually deconcentration of power, it's just functions. They want to deconcentrate the functions that they accumulate in some places so that it could be used somewhere. But when we talk of decentralization, decentralization in itself is supposed to be like federation. And as long as you look at what is happening in Cameroon, you will never accept that this centralized government could ever give their power to some individuals to manage out there. Mm-hmm. It will be difficult for you to see the Minister of Education allow the regional president to run education in the region. He will intervene, and even sanction issues in that particular region, even when things are not bad. So, in relation to the so-called decentralization, Mr. Leo, I can't see any improvement.
So there has been no devolution of powers down?
There is practically no. Okay, let me quote another situation. In Kumba, I think if you remember, there is the
situation of Paul Eric Kinge in Jombe, Penja.
Even in Jombe, then the Kumba issue where the DO, the senior divisional officer, stopped the regional delegate of decentralization from coming to inspect councils, which it is his duty. At the end of the day, you ask the question, why are they fighting? It is simply to make you understand that power comes from one place. The Dio knows that he is representing the president. So if you say you are a delegate, you have no power as long as he's concerned. He told them all those things fall under his administration, forgetting to know that there is a law that has come out to actually cancel the former law.
Okay.
Which gives him power, gives the delegate power to come in there, do his evaluation.
Okay, good evening,
So such things, I'm shocked and surprised anyway.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu and your finest panelists. I'm so happy when I see Dr. Nick Kangaruman saying the truth. Boldly, Mr. Liu, truth is one and is very simple to understand. The maker is writing from Boya. Good evening to you, the maker. Boris from Bonaberi Douala says, I wish to ask about the regional houses. That is what we are talking about. I'll ask whether anything has changed since the election of the regional officials in the 10 regions. I don't know. We've heard very little about them. Greetings to you all in the studio, especially to you, Mr. Liu, who used to be my SP boys in okay. Please, I love the program. Keep it on. Jam away from Bamenda. Yes. I hope I was a good SPO. Yes, we are looking at the situation out there. They say to further address the issues resulting from the prolonged conflict in our regions, our government instituted a presidential plan for reconstruction and development for the Northwest and Southwest regions to address the immediate needs of the population of the Northwest and Southwest regions, which was signed on the 5th of May 2020 between the government of Cameroon and the United Nations Development Program. A good step. At least you raise the issue now that people need their houses to be reconstructed. They're telling the U.S. government that this is already in the pipeline.
Mr. Liu, I remember when they spoke about the reconstruction, and I remember in, I think, late 2016, if I'm not mistaken, where the government had its first, where it had a quota from the IMF of about 400 billion CFA as loan, for which was part of to develop the led private sector and the reconstruction. Yes, which it was a 3 years program for that money to be repaid, which till now has not been repaid. It has not been repaid, and further went again when the pandemic came on to further debts, citing the pandemic as an excuse why they have not been able to effect all of these projects which they had in place when that loan was granted to the government of this country. So you see, Mr. Liu, like I have been saying, when you look at the plan and the structure, the strategy of the government to uplift the lives of these people in this country, it seems as if it is artificial, because it does not directly affect the individuals that they purportedly claiming to want to bring reconstruction. When you talk about reconstruction, it's like I said, you cannot furnish a building where how will I put it, the people who are supposed to live in those buildings are in abject poverty, are in torment. It's like you make a building of a church building very beautiful and the worshippers are very poor. When we talk about reconstruction, I need to understand that the reconstruction has to do with human development, human resource, how will I put it, human resources, developing the life of your countrymen. That is the way I look at it. And then you talk about decentralization. Mr. Liu, what are you decentralizing? You are decentralizing power. That is what you are decentralizing. So that means that if you say sun has come out, everybody under the sun should feel the warmth of it. So you cannot talk about decentralization when power is absent. Then there's no decentralization, because when you talk about decentralization, you're talking about power. So that's what I mentioned earlier, that how will I put it, decentralization without autonomy. That means having the full right to decide what happens in your own region and develop your own. There's just no use about it. So the reconstruction project the government has put in place, Mr. Liu, from the DDR Center for the Disarmament and all of that, all of these things at the end of the day, when they began coming, most of us had good hope.
What do you mean there's no power? At least we have regional presidents now.
Mr. Leo, you cannot call presidents who
formerly presidents were not existing.
When you talk about presidents, you are talking about a head. We are not confused of who a president is. You are talking about a head that is able to make decision on how the body organs are supposed to flow in line with what the head is deciding. But these are heads that are unable to carry people ahead. They are unable to think. So you cannot call them heads, Mr. Leo, because many persons have heads, but they are unable to take decision or able to think. We need people who can, by pragmatism, Mr. Leo, we see how society, you see, there's no way, after citing very evident examples of other great leaders who are not lived long, but they have been able to do practical things that you can testify, you can quantify them, Mr. Leo. Okay. This is not the case.
Elvis, writing from Nimbe, says, good evening, Mr. Leo. Please try to invite some CPDM members so that the debate should be more exclusive. Dr. Ningwanyam is a member, a militant of the CPDM, though he's not mandated by his party, but the instances in charge of designating persons to represent parties at the level of television stations are informed. I informed them severally today, the person in charge who knows that they were supposed to be here today. They are not there. They have sent me their calendar for the week. The persons that are going to be on this platform for the week, they send it every day. So if they send, I cannot also go and arrest them to come and sit here. They are aware that this show is holding. The highest instance of the party knows that they are supposed to be here. I don't know whether they designated somebody who did not come. But I will get to you now, Far Evis Tayon. It says that it is against this backdrop that the regional assembly elections were held in December 2020. The subsequent changing attitude towards our government is reshaping the local political landscape towards effective people participation in governance, accountability, and public affairs.
I like that word, effective people participation, governance. You know, you see, these guys think that they can play upon words as if they are writing to nursery school kids. The architect of this letter needs to go back to school. When I say go to school, it means he needs to go back to the school of truth. Because all what is playing is a devil's advocate. He will play upon words and tell us about effective participation. I have said, and I'll say it over and over, any human being in the world who believes on the regional assembly and councils in Cameroon, the man himself or the woman is a daydreamer. In the present context where we find ourselves, the regional assemblies or councils or house of chiefs, they have no use. They have practically no use. I said sometime on this platform, when you say these are regional executives, and you say this is a president, at the same time you are appointing a secretary general on a presidential decree. At the same time, you have interlocutors. You have individuals who come to represent the state. At the same time, you say that the regional councillors cannot hold a meeting without taking permission from the governor. And the governor or his representative must be present to understand what is happening in the meeting. Are they independent? Do they represent the people? When you know the governors themselves are working for one man in Yaoundé. So at the end of it, whosoever crafted the issue of regional assembly, the man failed on arrival. Failed on arrival. Because as we speak, when you put in place some elected officials who cannot work on their own because you have other government agents in the assembly who give accountability directly to the presidency, it becomes an issue. Look at conflict of interest. Now, these SDOs are the lords on the House of Chiefs. The governors are the lords of the regional assemblies, and then you equally have another government official who is supervising, who is acting as an agent in. Then you have what we call the secretary generals. All of them are appointed using presidential decrees, and of course you will not expect them to come and give their reports to you, President. They give their reports to the person who appointed them. So secretary generals and governors and SDOs are there lording over your activities. The worst of it, Mr. Leo, is the clause that tells you that you cannot hold any of those houses without prior notification and authorization from the SDO if it's House of Chiefs or the governor if the regional assembly. Do these people think that we are fools? Now I said that all what they are quoting there, they have to find themselves more and more. Whoever told them that regional council or assembly has a use as in this present dispensation, that person is a daydreamer. Now, Mr. Leo, when you look at that letter,
regional presidents are there. What stops them from working? Is there a text from Yaoundé that says don't work?
Mr. Leo, when they work, what is their specificity? If you want to talk about special status as they claim, they are limited. You have education. You have, excuse me, sir, it's right. It's true. If you call the regional, you should not limit it to four within the 4 aspects of life. You should tell them that these are regional people who represent you. They should be able to work all around. They are limited as you find them. And when they tell you that in the issue of health, they are supposed to collaborate with the state, which means they cannot function alone. If you want to propose something on a hospital, you must work in collaboration with the ministry in charge of public health.
Yeah, because there is a national health policy now.
Good, there's a national health policy. What I'm saying here is that you are only lazy with them. The aspect of innovation is absent as far as regional assembly is concerned. Now look at it since they were put in place. The one in Boya, the ones in Bamenda, their offices are not still equipped. They are still waiting for budget from Yaoundé. They know what I'm talking about. I've gone. The offices are still empty. They know what I'm talking about. And when I spoke to some of them indirectly, and they told me that no, they are still waiting for budget allocation from Yaoundé. These are persons since they were put in place. What have they done? You people should tell me. I say your house is a kangaroo house, regional assembly, kangaroo house, just like the rest in Yaoundé. So at the end of it, when I see an empty, flimsy letter writing to the U.S. Secretary of State, because someone somewhere has triggered the findings and the realities on the ground, you begin to rant. You have not yet started ranting. When the time comes, we will all rant together. We'll be ranting together. So just relax. Ranting period is coming.
Okay, Mohammed Suleiman, who is watching us from Kumba, he says that hi, greetings to you guys. I accept totally with fire. The regional council is scam. We are talking about making people more autonomous, taking their destinies into their hands and being more involved in decision making circles, especially when it comes to their immediate communities. Do you, like Suleiman is saying from Kumba, that it is a scam? Isn't it also because people don't want to take their responsibilities into their hands? They have been made regional bosses. What stops them from working? Dr. Nick.
Listen, we have 2 problems here. There is a problem of the people put there and given whatever name. Then there is a problem of what that structure is. So we have those 2 problems. Let me explain. There is a problem of capacity. You just bundle a group of people and fill posts with it and think they will solve problems. No. We have 65 ministers. Why can't they solve our problems? It's a problem of capacity. They don't have the capacity for, many of them don't have the capacity of solving problems. They're just politicians. That's it. Why is it that departments don't work? Why is it that this doesn't work? Why is it capacity? And I've said it before that we lack that capacity because our educational system has been not good enough. Is it? So it's not because somebody is giving some title or something. If he doesn't have the capacity, doesn't have the capacity, call him anything. It's no use.
To the issue, to some extent,
I'm trying to explain.
Competence.
I'm trying to explain. And you know, President Pobia in 2013, he was screaming and crying and pulling his hair out. He said, the people are suffering from,
inertia.
Inertia. You think that it has changed? It has gone worse. Before that time, the president was asking himself, what is going on? December 31st, 2013, he comes on the air and tells us, look, this is my people. You are suffering from inertia. Above all, you care only about your stomach. You don't care about common good. But nothing has changed. That said, let's suppose that the people who have been put there have capacity. Why can they not function? They can't function because their hands have been tied. And we are saying that the system that will work in the country is this one. Cameroon will be split, politically into West Cameroon and East Cameroon. You have these federal structures. Then you take this, our so-called decentralization now, and take it into those states so that the Northwest is decentralized from the Southwest. And then so that when you come to East Cameroon, you have these 8 units functioning independently, but being part of that whole called East Cameroon. And for it to work, watch my lips. ENAM is responsible for 80% of problems in this country. For it to work, governors, DOs, SDOs, they will not be appointed. We would call them anything, but they will be voted in. Not necessarily because they went to ENAM. You must not bring an ENAM certificate. Because what happens technically is they just bundle a couple of people, and you know that these days you pay 10 million, you go to ENAM. So what happens is you are not having the best. And once you have them coming there, they are not interested in common good, they are interested in their stomachs. So we have a huge problem, and we must rise up to the occasion and solve the problems. If we keep denying it, just worshiping people because they are boss, no. Like someone was saying, we need some, you call them some despot, what is it? Benevolent despots. That means we need people who know what is right, and then put their foot down, and it is done. This democracy is not working. And that's why I was telling Far Elvis that we are going to have a celebration of the death of the Requiem Mass for 350 political parties. Even your own party would die.
Okay.
Okay.
Sumbele Kelvin, writing from Kong Samba, says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and you are wonderful panelists. The fact that this problem is not yet solved until now makes some of your panelists to speak with anger. My brothers, you people need to reduce your anger and respond politely to our moderator, Mr. Liu. Let us believe in the words of Dr. Nick that the government wants to organize a dialogue for real. Sumbele writing from Kong Samba. Good evening to you, my brother. I will be in Kong Samba. I'm sure by the end of the week I'll be there. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and the great panelist is Lista Montana, writing from Yaoundé. I'm enjoying your program. Very educative. Lista, please do greet us, extend my greetings to your mom. I hope she's getting better. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. We agree there is a problem, but I think people should do criticisms with some sense of responsibility. The kind of diction you use makes you look unserious. No need to use harsh words. Unquite Bless is writing from Yaoundé. Yes, our televiewers are getting the more they say we should cool off, we should be more responsible. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the whole learned panel. I think it's ridiculous to dedicate authorities without any power. Power and authority move hand in glove. Look at the regional councils. Does this apply? There is no regional council in Cameroon. Okay. Larry Essong, our colleague, writing there from Kumbai, says the regional president is helmed by 3 presidential appointees: the Secretary General, the Treasurer, and an independent conciliator who has same powers like the president. How does this house function with these? He goes further to say the regional house has no power. The house can be dissolved at any time by the governor. The regional house is limited. They can't discuss political issues. Of what use is the house? Good evening to you, DP, Larry Essong, and your team of the Scoop Media Group. Good evening to all of you guys. This one says, good evening, Mr. Liu. The regional council's offices are not functioning because furnitures are to be bought by the Minister for Decentralization. They don't have any budget. That is not a topic for tonight, but I may be tempted to ask why they will put them in place without proper preparation, that is making provisions for effective takeoff, given the context in which we find ourselves.
Salio, before I get to your answer, there's a question you asked
Dr. Nick,
which I actually wanted to contribute something to it. One of the problems also is the fact that we lack job descriptions, even when right to ministers. People are appointed into offices without a job description. They don't know what they are supposed to be doing where they are. they do not give them directives on what they are supposed to be doing.
Are you sure?
I believe so, Mr. Liu.
Are you sure? Because if you look at the code for the decentralization code that we are talking about, I hope you have read through to see what these guys are expected. There are those things,
Mr. Liu, I have gone through, but when I look at it and I see the same functions across, it means that, why should I say it's a particular job description? If I am president, I should have a job description that is practically different from that of the, Secretary General. I should have a complete different job description from that of the governor and that of they call them what? Conciliator. So when you see the things interlapping, you tend to feel like there is no practical job description.
Done deliberately.
There is no practical job description. And so you do not expect a person who feels like, okay, Dr. Nick used that statement, their hands are tied. Already with that kind of job description that is not clear, you can't do anything, Mr. Liu. Nothing. And when it comes to this particular house, we are tempted to believe that it seems as if we Cameroonians, in fact, our leaders deemed it necessary to put things like that in order to manipulate us, and to an extent it seems as if they are looking down on Cameroonians as fools who do not have any reasoning faculty or who do not have the capacity to see things as they are.
Okay.
But as it is, we are no more in those years where information was supposed to be gotten only when you go through the universities or school. Today, somebody can sit in his house and pick his phone, get connected to the internet, and get information that someone sitting in the university is getting. And so, we shouldn't struggle to behave as if we are in the 60s.
Okay.
We are presently in the 2000s.
Yeah, we are living in an information age.
So they should stop playing around with things like that. And I would say this is the one reason, Mr. Liu, where it seems as if this problem will be postponed to the next generation.
Okay.
Because it seems as if they do not want to engage it and deal with it at once.
Okay.
They will solve it or they leave.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu and the entire panelists of Great Minds with a very interesting topic. Excuse me, I always find time to watch the live program, even with my busy schedule. Keep the good work. Aiden Vioff watching from Halifax in Canada. Good evening to you, dear brother. Hey, Mr. Liu. This is Asong from Boya. All our problems we are facing today in this country was carefully planted by the white man, and today people are dying and they are quiet, making us to trust them the more, even if our leaders have proven to be incompetent. The white man cannot help us. We have been caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. If a white man finally give us a solution, expect war again tomorrow, because they know what to do to keep us as slaves for life. Okay, please ask Dr. Nick, when is the government organizing this new one? Let's pray. Only Jesus can save us. Okay, Dr. Nick, you alone see. Boss's issues is killing this nation. Only Boya, we have a governor, a DO, a state council, a procureur general, a mayor, a central commissioner, etc. Says child pay. Okay, let's look at our last. Yes, that is if you are there from Boya. Let's look at our second topic for tonight after the short break. Okay, you're watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are going to be looking at this reaction from Germany that is stating that Anglophone crisis, Germany rules out foreign intervention in the country. That is what the Guardian Post is carrying. We made some calls also to authenticate the information. Kangaroo Man, are you surprised with this? Remember last week we had a similar stance from the United Nations, which states that the Anglophone problem was not in the agenda anytime soon.
No, I'm not surprised by that. I'm not surprised by that. You know, we are living in an era whereby before anybody moves in, the question the person asks his or herself is, what is my gain? Mm-hmm. What do I stand to benefit? And so, well, we had already spoken to a handful of them. We spoke even to the Deutscher Bundestag, that's their parliament, the German parliament, and the host of others, authorities over there. We are not surprised with that, by that, but I think that it is just a mere slogan. You know, in diplomacy, you can say you are not interested today, and when the dance changes the other day, the next time, you find yourself coming in. But now, what we try to do at the level of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation is that we try to get the point straight and not to get parties to come in because they are interested or because they have one or two benefits. That's just the way we try to put it. They make them to look at it at the humanitarian point of view. Now, when Germany responds like that, I understand that first, you know, now let me put it this other way. You know, the first place is that they have, I will call it a colonial grudge. You know, they were rooted out of many African countries unceremoniously. That's the first thing that comes into mind. And so, why do you call me to come back when I was rooted from Cameroon unceremoniously and things like that? That one is part of it, which is playing at the background very far. Now, the second aspect, while I say I'm not surprised with Germany probably not showing an interest, is for the fact that, as I said, interest comes into play. If they have to come in, what are some of their investments? Do they have enormous investments that can guarantee them? For example, if you have a problem in Nigeria and you ask France will easily come in because they have huge investments in Nigeria, even than Britain, which is their former colonial masters. You have a huge investment there.
Yes,
so
their highest investment in Africa is in
Nigeria. That's what people don't understand. It's Nigeria. So if you call France today to intervene in Nigeria, France will come on the spot. But if you call, that's why I say that Germany is reluctant, because what do they stand to gain? They have only old remnants of edifices that are not playing any role apart from remembering that Germans, apart from, you know. So at the end of it, what we say here is that we have not given up. I must admit that. You know, when you come into diplomacy and lobbying, sometimes your lobbying, your first step or second step might not be good enough. I want to let you know that we will still move there because we have quite, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag about, but we have quite
Mr. Hoffman now.
other moves. Yeah.
With an advisor to
yes,
you guys,
to the coalition.
Who is pressing.
Anyway, you are letting the cat just like, well, anyways, okay. Yeah, he's part of it. And we equally have others who are equally queuing. That's why I said the difference with the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation is that it's made up of Cameroonians who are co-opting non-Cameroonians into it. Not for the fact that we want them to have a direct say, but our issue is to press hard for Yaoundé to succumb to dialogue. That's why I said that whether Yaoundé likes it or not, circumstances as we are piping in, and others, because there are others who are working in Mr. Leo. We will not want to say that it's just only Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation who are working. There are others who are working from their various angles where they are. But we're saying that it will meet at it will converge at a particular center that will force Yaoundé, whether they like it or not, to come to terms to address the crisis. But the main issue we have realized from what is that, Mr. Leo, there's another part of it which I'll tell you, which might not be too good for diplomats, is that we have a dirty diplomatic ping-pong game going on. I'm sorry to say that. People always say Africans are corrupt. The West, they are more corrupt than us. I'm very sorry to tell you that. If I tell you the number of roadblocks we are meeting, because money is changing hands between the powers that be and some other quarters, there are others that have been paid to lobby against the end of the crisis. So it's very complex. I don't want to bring it out here. You know, you understand what I'm talking about. But that's the bad part of diplomacy. That some people think that the West is as holy as white, as holy as the color, like what they call whiter as snow. But it's not so. So we have those number of roadblocks, but we say that we are not giving up at the level of diplomacy because we believe that we'll keep re-strategizing and coming back. All is that from the indications we have, and from the members, even from the Deutscher Bundestag who are part of us, they are assuring us that whether they like it or not, the German government would at a point in time listen to us. We are not saying they should come and we are saying that they should come and soften the ground for the regime to bow. And then we start talking about negotiations. Then we'll start talking about who are those to come in for. That time the whole bullshit of national dialogue is already even in history. It's fast forgotten. Would look for another mechanism to put in place to resolve the conflict, so to say.
Tiku Felix says, good evening, Mr. Liu. This appointment thing is actually what is killing this country. You choose unqualified people, give them technical positions to solve technical problems, but they try to apply the copy and paste method without even knowing how to go about what they say. They use terms they are not vested with, talk less of knowing what it means. They use the term decentralization, yet they don't know what actually it is. Evidence is their recent actions. Andrin at Temebako, we are looking at the German stance. How serious is the international community? Are they not also playing games? Last week we got an official from the United Nations say that they had any agenda to discuss the Anglophone crisis is not going to be tabled at the level of the UN Security Council anytime soon. The Germans are saying that this is an internal affair and that it should be handled from within Cameroon.
I think the Germans have spoken well, and they have shown some great level of honesty to actually describe how this problem can only be resolved. It's only when Cameroonians themselves will sit down together and solve their own problem. I think that is almost like a parable which the Germans are sending over to the people of Cameroon. That word alone contains a lot of insight, because the Germans, being the one that colonized this part of the world, knows the intricacy and understand the history and understand the actors that are in place that are actually the genesis of what we are talking today. So I think that the remedy the Germans are offering to the people of this country is the only way forward, until we begin to look inside ourselves, until we begin to look one another. It's just like Jesus was saying. He said the time has come where people don't need to go to Jerusalem, or they don't need to go to the mountain to worship God. They are going to worship God in spirit and in truth. So that means that the only way out of, how will I put it, of liberty, coming out of one's difficult moments, is when you start looking within, because all solutions are found in the problem. Mr. Leo, what is happening today in Cameroon? Let me just give Cameroonians a very simple a picture on what the problem is. Cameroon government is like a module, and its administrators are like sensors. There's a very simple way when you want to carry out a diagnostic to know exactly where the problems are coming from. I'm not going to shift anymore the problem to the colonial system or shift it to the international community. I want to reduce it to the level of Cameroonians. If you look carefully where this problem is coming from, Mr. Liu, you come to realize that when you want to know whether a sensor is actually functioning, you first need to test the input. When it receives input, automatically it is supposed to now carry out the output to meet its demand. Now, when there is no output, it tells you that that sensor has a problem. So the government is like a module which gets information from these sensors, and that is how they communicate. And the sensors communicate to the people on ground or the population of that country. So once there is no output, it means that if these individuals, these administrators, are not capable of transmitting the aspiration, the problems, the difficulties, the hardship that Cameroonians are going through, the cry of the people, if they are not able to communicate that to the main module, solution is not going to come. So you come to realize that the actors who are in place are like as dead as a bad sensor that you need to throw and replace a new one. When you stand in front of a mirror, Mr. Leo, the mirror is supposed to reflect who is standing before the mirror. I want you to tell me, Mr. Leo, which of these government administrators are reflecting the people which they are representing? It simply means it's as if they are spirits. You stand in front of a mirror does not reflect you. You come to defend and stand to lead the people, but you don't reflect the people. You don't even communicate. The people don't even know you. You don't even know the people. So how are you able to bring solution to these people? Permit me, Mr. Leo. Now let us go back to how this whole thing started way back in the 60s. Like I was saying, Mr. Liu, if you look like Mark Anthony was saying and Far Elvis was saying, you look at the real corrupted people. It is not the Cameroonians. We have seen the corruption of the West in Africa, in Cameroon. That when we are talking about corruption, it's at different dimensions, different levels. So if the United Nations or the United States wants to help Cameroon, let them tell France to start leaving Cameroon. It is very important if these African colonies are going to move forward. France does not need to be part of what we do, because they are one of the major hindrances that is causing these censors not functioning. Okay. These individuals that are supposed to reflect the people are not reflecting the people.
Okay. Dr. Nick, the German government says it insists that Cameroonians are best placed to resolve the crisis. Where are they? Why have they not done so since?
They are right. You see, last time when I hear Far Elvis vibrating, how that international community is going to force, it's going to force, and I've been trying to say, you know, like you and I were looking at that crystal ball, though you are not seeing, but you know, you have to be initiated to see.
I've been struggling to see.
Yeah, but okay, next time I will show how you read the crystal ball. Now listen, it's not an issue of force. So when you hear the UN saying that they are not putting on their agenda, you see the Germans saying that it's not necessary. They are just telling you that there's a solution underway. And I told you already that there will be a dialogue. Because what you are trying to do is to say, let them force the government to accept the dialogue. But I already told you that the dialogue is underway. There will be reconciliation and the unity. If you like, you believe me. If you like, you argue. That's your problem. But continue to do what you're doing. But it will change nothing. All right? It will change nothing because technically there is work going on in that direction. Okay, that's all I can just tell you. And if there's work already going in that direction, and behind the camera, a lot has already been done in that direction. They don't have to come and be showing you public interest. No, it's not necessary. You are asking somebody to carry out a homework that has already been done.
Yes, but my question to you is: they say we have to fix our problems.
Yes,
where are the persons? Are we going to birth new persons?
Okay, now, okay, there's going to be dialogue. The question you're asking me is who will be at that dialogue? The one we had last time, which failed, we call it a national dialogue, and we brought people from the north, from the east or west, and put it there, and they torpedoed the whole thing. This time around, there's not going to be anybody torpedoing any other person, because you will have the government, and you will have Anglophones talking to each other on a round table. It's not somebody up there and another person down here. No, no, it will be level playing ground, and so the government will be there with a listening ear, not this high-handed thing. And then, on the Anglophone side, you will have people of the diaspora. You will have the people who are in prison now. You would have Anglophones, and then you would have even people who have been fighting. So it will be everybody. Nobody will be left out. Nobody will be left out. You will have Bayam Selams will be there. Everybody will be there because we'll be talking about our nation, and that problem is going to be solved. Thank you.
Okay, the problem is going to be solved. Now, do you understand this stance? The United Nations says, okay, we are not discussing this thing anytime soon, and Germany now says, okay, we are not doing the same. We have seen the British and the UK. Even with the outing of the UK Member of Parliament, the lady who was shocked at the fact that the UK was going to engage in trade
with Cameroun,
partnership agreements with Cameroon. She says, no, please don't do that. But 2 days to 3 days after, we saw the British signing, the UK signing with Cameroon to say that seemingly what people are saying, expecting from here, is not seen from the same prism or eye by some of these international instances.
Mr. Leo, this is international politics, and it goes with gains. And I want to say it is not news if Germany says they are not going to be involved. First of all, we do not expect them to get involved in Cameroon affairs. And apart from that, it is true that at times I do say that this problem actually came into place by the Europeans. But I don't think that it is a European solution that is going to make it stable, bring Cameroon to stability. But we should not forget, if in reality Cameroon is going to gain its independence, let me use that word, and get to the place where it is able to negotiate and solve its problems, then we must remove foreign influence from Cameroon. And we, like Bako rightly said, we begin with France. If the UN has to play a part in this Cameroon crisis, we call it the Southern Cameroon crisis, then it is necessary that the UN should tell France to leave Cameroon, because if you look at it, decolonization, which was supposed to have ended in 1960, has not ended. It is still going on. In fact, we are still colonized. And so it is necessary that the UN plays its part in decolonizing Cameroon from the hands of France. Mm-hmm. We do not expect that Britain should come again to say, okay, we want to, there is nothing that Britain needs to do in Cameroon. There's nothing that France needs to do in Cameroon. There's nothing that Germany needs to do in Cameroon. But we need that Cameroon should remain in the hands of Cameroonians. And not any individual is supposed to be at the helm of leadership in Cameroon. Mm-hmm. We do not need individuals who are going to come and play European and Western democracy in order to see Cameroon advance. If Cameroon is going to advance, then we need individuals. I use the word strong leaders to lead this nation and give us that direction which we need. Because I have for a long period of time said, yes, our problem actually started back when decolonization was supposed to take place in 1961, and that was all because of France. If the decolonization did not take place, because of France. If they manipulated it, it was France. If 1972 got to where it was, where the federation was actually annulled, it was France. And so, if we have a serious problem in Africa, it is not Germany. So the Germans have the right to say, okay, we are not coming in. Britain has the right to say, we keep on with our business. But I think the United Nations needs to speak to France, who is, as one of the major players in Cameroon and one of the major players in the United Nations. They need to tell France to stop. I was listening to one Italian, I think it's Prime Minister, who spoke, what's the Prime Minister? Deputy Prime Minister. Yes, attacking France. And then there's another lady who actually spoke to the French government and told Macron that you people are the ones that are causing Africans to be in poverty. You say you don't want Africans to enter again into Europe, but you are pushing them to come into Europe. Okay. In fact, if you come to Africa, every major thing we have precisely in Cameroon here, I'm talking about, major businesses in Cameroon are run by the French.
Okay, but the Chinese are also doing
the Chinese are just coming, Mr. Leo. They have not been in Cameroon for long. France has been here for long.
Oh, wait.
And they need to leave.
No, dear listeners,
they need to leave?
Wait.
They need to leave Cameroon.
Dear listeners,
we need independence.
Give me your ears. I just asked for the microphone because I wanted to give some kind of an explanation around what Professor was saying a moment ago. You see, we have problems in Cameroon. You know, he's saying that those problems are caused by foreigners. It's only partially true. But most of those problems, we cause them on ourselves. You know, when we're talking of the Human Development Index, or the capacity, that word capacity, to do something. A country only grows and the people are only as rich as the capacities that they have. The capacity to solve their own problems themselves. Even the French, if the French left, that's great. But we still have inherent problems in us in the sense that we have not developed our own capacities to solve our problems. That is the problem. Let me ask you the question. When you go on our streets, they're very dirty. There is no water, and there's no water all over the whole place. There's no electricity. The health systems are broken down. The question is it the French that dictated that on us? No. When children must enter a school like Enam and somebody must collect 10 million francs from a child to get in there, is it the French that said you should do so? No. I saw a mother today. She was crying because she went over to Bonab. She went over to.
A town like Limbe is clean.
It is a good.
Wait. Just wait. No, wait.
Why are other towns dirty when a town like Limbe is clean?
Wait, no, just wait. Let me finish because there are a lot of things that we ought to be doing. You see, the problem is huge. Let's give it that we have 100% of problems, but you should be seen to be carrying out 40% of the problems, solving them. And then somebody is standing in your way so that you cannot get up to 80%. But the problem is we are not even doing the little that we should do that is at our level.
Okay.
And where is the problem? The problem lies in our educational system. That is not good enough. Our educational system is not good enough. And if we don't change it, nothing will work. It's very important that I say this.
Okay. Good evening, all. Gembe Eric from Limbe. Dr. Nick, if there are no third parties between the two parties, let us forget the dialogue will yield no fruit. I don't trust the government of the country. Okay.
Can I just answer that? There will be a third party who will not come there to impose, but to monitor what is happening.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Bertrand from Bamenda. If we know France is our problem, why can't we stand against them the same way Southern Cameroonians have done against against the government? That is what Ebako has been saying for weeks now. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The West can do anything here because of our ignorance. They have the right to exchange money so that this war should not end. They are in business and are making a lot of profits from our short sight. If I may ask you, if you were the country supplying war weapons to Cameroon and making billions of francs CFA, would you pray for the war to end? This is our country, and even if our country is sick, we shall look for the right medication. No outsider will help you. Germany is right. If outsiders will have to be invited, then by the end of the war, Cameroon will be naked because everyone coming will need to go back with his or her own part of the national cake. Okay, thank you for that contribution. This one says, please read my message. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Thank you for the hard work you are doing to educate us Cameroonians. Thank you, Dr. Nick. Thank you, the kangaroo man. Only the truth shall set us free. Basil is writing from Limbe. Thank you, Basil. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Greetings to the panelists. The debate on whether there will be a dialogue between the government and the Anglophone is a dream. We have witnessed the Anglophone dying for over 5 years today and nothing is being done. We should stop dreaming. Kingsley is writing from Marua. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Greetings to you guys on the panel. I am writing in response to the request for foreign countries to intervene in the resolution of internal conflicts in Africa as a whole. I don't see how we expect people who produce guns and sell to us to come and stop us from using these guns. It's time we started thinking of empowering African Union and other regional blocs to do the same moral and political status as UN and Europeans. Okay, Wanyu NS Nyamko writing from Chang. Good evening to you. A Wanuge writing from Kuma says, I salute the efforts of Dr. Nick to see the crisis to resolve. I buy into his position. A second dialogue and reconciliation must take place to bring this quagmire to an end. Okay. This one says, hello, Mr. Liu. Good evening to you and your distinct panelists. Indeed, whenever you have these great men like Dr. Nick Ibako, the Kangaroo Man, and Prof on board, I always suspend my busy schedule to listen to great minds talking. Give them time to express their views. Cameroon is in a pit. It will take another 50 years for all of these old men to give way before we can think of a way forward. Okay. Dr. Echu Carl, writing from Los Angeles, California, United States of America. Good evening to you, Doctor. Good evening. Mr. Liu, waiting for the West to intervene is like carrying water in a basket. A. Young Franklin is also writing from the United States. More and more people are losing hope. They think that we should solve our problems.
Well, Mr. Liu, I want to be very honest with you. I said the crisis in Cameroon is very peculiar to the world. Very peculiar, because if you look at other crises, the uniqueness of the crisis we have here is that it's a crisis which also has what they call hands in the diaspora, which has not been the same case with other areas. If you look at people like Laurent Kunda and other like in DRC, they were actually on the field. You know, that aspect of another quarter having an influence in the diaspora was not very much present. You go to Liberia, you go to Sierra Leone. Now, let me come back to the issue. I understand that we are working here at a period whereby we have many Pan-Africanists. Now, but we have to face a fact. Now, when your house is on fire, when you are fighting, and you have an elder brother who is stronger than you beating you up mercilessly, you will not tell me that you will not call Prof, who is next door neighbor to you, to come and assist you because Prof is not part of your house. If you do that, it means you are doomed to die. Because Prof that you would have shouted for him to leave 3-4 steps other house to come and assist you, you say no, you can solve within yourself. Now, we'll be deceiving ourselves for no good reason. I want to say this categorically clear. When you look at apartheid in South Africa, many people till now have not known that there were invisible hands behind. There was a lot of lobbying that took the West to also play another aspect to force the Dutch in South Africa to also come to a compromise with Mandela and his group. I'm very sorry, some people are not very aware of that. If you go to Liberia, even during the period of Charles Taylor and all the like, I will be able to tell you sincerely that the crisis in Liberia and Sierra Leone did not come to an end by itself. There was a lot of lobbying, and there were invisible hands and diplomatic moves that forced the rebel leaders who were involved to succumb. That explains why I said anybody who, for example, one reason or another thinks that the crisis in Cameroon can be solved by Cameroonians, it means that you want us to die for the next 50 years. I don't think that you value human lives. The truth is that where we are, a third party is required, whether we like it or not. Now, if you look at the UN, Mr. Leo, telling you that no, they are not ready to look into it. They are simply playing their own diplomatic role. Why do I say so? If you look at what happened in the Berlin Conference, 1884 in Africa, what happened? The colonial powers realized that they were conflicting with colonies. And so to solve the problem, they retreated. They went down to Berlin, organized themselves, and said for us to come and belittle ourselves in front of the Africans, it will not be good. So let us petition. You take this, Tanganyika, Portugal, you take this, Spain, you take this part. And that's how Africa was partitioned. Now, in the case of where we are in Cameroon, I want to let us know categorically clear that with the current state that we find ourselves, I have said that corruption is taking place already. There are people who are fighting for the interest. Like in international politics, we say there is no permanent friend, but permanent interest. What is happening? Now, some people think that when we talk about people coming in means they are coming to decide for us. No. There are diplomatic means that when people that we lobby for come in, they simply press on the government concerned to yield to it. Now, it's contrary to what Dr. Nick is saying here, like, the government is preparing. No. If you say the government is preparing something, it will be the same files like the first one. I repeat, if anybody thinks that Yaoundé can sit on their own and say, okay, dialogue time, everybody come, this is the level ground, it will not work.
Okay.
Circumstances and mechanisms are on the ground to force, and therefore why I said, Mr. Leo, while concluding that it is but normal that there will be third parties. This is a fact that will come in and play a role for the crisis to come to an end.
Andrew, he says that if we don't invite these guys to come in, it means that people will continue dying. But people have been dying for the past 4 or 5 years. They have not been here. Are there any signs that they are coming anytime soon? And what if they don't come?
I think in the first 2 weeks of the pandemic in Germany, they lost 10,000 Germans. I don't know if Cameroonians went there to assist the Germans or the Americans or the British or the Europeans in the time of the pandemic, in the crisis, let me put it that way. You see, if we were fighting with aliens, I would say we can seek for international help to bring us some kind of ammunition, technological weapons to fight the aliens. We are talking here of Cameroonians, which is very important for us to understand that we are dealing here with ourselves. It's just like the 12 tribes of Israel came as a result of 12 sons of Jacob, where tomorrow it was called, the father himself of that family was called Israel. So it does not mean that Judah has a problem with another tribe and then you begin to call the Gentile nation to come and resolve a problem which is inside the house. And that is why I quoted to you the strategy on resolving conflict as Jesus himself said in the Bible. They are procedures which we have not followed those due procedure. And I come to tie with Doc that another dialogue will take place, even though we would assume that the first was a farce. But that initiative alone is a sign that if we keep on going, we are going to get somewhere, probably either the second or the third dialogue. So I would not say a first attempt or a trial, we should annul the fact that we cannot succeed. We can. The fact that we failed, we can still do it again, and we can still do it over and over again. Now, coming back to, there was something that Dr. Nick was saying, that the Cameroonians themselves should have capacity of solving their own problem. That is very true. But now, if you look at the context in which the Cameroonians have been placed in, it is such a one that even if you should have a good will to solve a problem, judging the current context of the system in which we are, you will be suppressed or you'll be eliminated. We have seen that in other areas. Clear examples have been set. If you go way back in the 57, where the French assassinated Ignobe, who opened the UPC for the people of Cameroon to have to emancipate and to have self-determination. It was France and the government of Ahidjo that did that assassination. So what we are saying here is that in that 1960, a system was set in place. And that system is what is killing Cameroon today. That's what I call the system democracy. Democracy should have been used in a context where a nation has already gained financial stability, political emancipation, like how we saw in the West. When did they apply democracy? When they had already built their system successfully. Legacy had already been put in place, and then they brought in democracy. You tell me in 1960, a very young people who are just coming from a very gruesome experience, and they say they have given them independence to apply a system called democracy in, how will I put it, in the context that they were going to develop Africa so fast. That was the idea about it. They were going to help build Africa so fast, develop Africa so fast. But for over 60 years, we are in stagnation using a particular system called democracy. And that is why I will tie with Prof that we need strong leaders. And how can we get to a point where we can freely apply democracy? Strong leaders, for example, like Kagame, Magufuli, single men who were able to change the course of mountains that had lived for years that no one could shake them. One man come and bring and affect such changes. Now you can apply that system. So we need strong leaders with strong political will who can reflect their people and make the changes that their people deserve. Then we can now start putting systems like democracy that can, if the presidents or the leaders are not there tomorrow, the system can continue. And that is why I said that to tell you that the world is being controlled by a system, that is why when Biya talked about the assimilation process did not work, who did he go to report to? To Macron. Macron is a grandson. But you realize that you are not dealing here with persons, you are dealing here with systems. So until Cameroonians begin to change the system which is in place that does not reflect the spirit of Cameroonians themselves, like I said, did not derive from Cameroonians themselves, we are going nowhere. And this is going to take the Cameroonians themselves to build their nation.
Okay. Good job, Mr. Liu, and all our panelists for today. The West are saying that Cameroonians can solve their problems, but they are selling weapons to the government and to the other people to fight the war. Okay. Yes, yes, the weapons are coming from them. We have to end here. Unfortunately, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, we are grateful you accepted our invitation to be part of this edition of the program. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. There's going to be a dialogue, there's going to be reconciliation, and there will be unity. And the dialogue will not be called because of Tar Elvis and his good group. The dialogue is called because there's a necessity for us to end this war now and make sure that the country goes forward. So there would be one very important dialogue, that there will be truth in the dialogue, there will be love in the dialogue, there will be respect in the dialogue,
And there will be reconciliation.
and there will be reconciliation.
Okay.
And there will be other dialogues probably to solve the problems of the North, problems with the of Sardinard, Tontina, all those other smaller problems.
Thank you to Professor Mark Anthony for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. I'll end by saying that if objectivity must stay in power, then truth must be respected and become the base of our discussions,
Okay.
from the top down to the floor.
Okay, this person keeps insisting. Read my message. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. The regional council is as good as dead. The government of Cameroon is very confused that they don't even know what to do at the particular time. These old men need to give room to young breed. We need men like the kangaroo man in the Senate and Parliament. Special greetings to the kangaroo man, Prince Ndikum, watching from Sweden. Good evening to you, Prince Ndikum. Good evening, Mr. Liu. This is a song from where we should be careful not to create another bigger problem out of frustration, because we are trying to have a solution to the Anglophone problem. Nobody is coming to solve your problem without payment. If Cameroonians love their country, they should look for any means to solve their problems. We should not end up crying like Libya. Be careful. Justice can not be seen in Africa, not even democracy. Our own is on paper. Thank you for coming. Bye, Mr.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Liu. And, I'm happy they were bringing this issue up, even though people keep deceiving people that another dialogue is coming championed by the government. I want to let people know that if we have tested and it's not working with the people in Yaoundé, a third party, obviously, is the only key to this. If not, we'll be prepared to fight another war for the next 50 years, which I don't think any human being would like to venture into that. Special greetings to all the people, all those who are watching us, Pazefo from Limbe, and a host of others from Gunoko village watching us right away. The right things must be done, Mr. Liu. If a letter like this comes out, know that there's something pursuing the letter. Don't mind the grammar we're blowing here. More will succumb. Yaoundé, take note.
Thank you for coming to Andrew Nademebaku.
Well, Mr. Liu, thank you very much for this opportunity. The last word I will say tonight to all Cameroonians listening and those that are following this program is that, you see, you cannot turn back to the very same people that enslaved you and think that they have a good will for you, and looking at the history from where we are coming from. If we cannot assume our own responsibility and share of the problem, then we are not honest with ourselves, because Cameroonians are the creators of the problems themselves, whether it has its root from colonial history, but we are the ones sustaining the current problems. So if we cannot assume the responsibility and take, how will I put it, the courage to look one-on-one on face and say, okay, come here, and how do we go from here? We are not going anywhere.
Okay, we want to thank you, Desmond, and to you, Eli, and Bertrand, and Noel, and to you, Tabi, Tambe Bryant, and special evening to all of you who took time off to watch this program. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.